Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. This is Sin City Programmers. We really cover anything from like software engineering, tech, how to move your business forward with software and AI. Today we have Aaron Allen. He's a full stack engineer, and he's going to be discussing how he thinks critically with AI, really like how you do that, especially within a company setting, right, where there's a lot of expectation for engineers and AI, and he's going to take us through that. So thank you for coming and speaking, and we'll get started.
Thank you again, Justin, for introducing me. Hello, everyone. As Justin said, my name is Aaron Allen. I am a full-stack software engineer, and I came up with this presentation today through, as we're all working with AI tools, and we're getting more and more used to them, and they're becoming more and more powerful. The most valuable skill I think we all need is critical thinking. It's something that we should not neglect, and something we should grow and continue to further strengthen to continue to build amazing apps that we're all working on. So a bit about me before I get into it. Over 4 years of experience in software engineering, happily married for 7 years, and I'm a huge geek/nerd, so that might be sprinkled throughout the presentation. So for our agenda today, we'll talk through what is critical thinking and why it is important. We'll go into how to use critical thinking and when using AI tools. We'll then go into how to grow critical thinking skills for development, and then finally end with some Q&A. All that one. So first off, what is critical thinking? So I know all of us can come with their own definition of what it might be. We have like our own little tricks, or we want to explain to someone. But I found this definition from Monash University. I think it really sums up everything. Critical thinking is a kind of thinking in which you question, analyze, interpret, evaluate, and make a judgment about what you read, hear, say, or write. So something just like summarizes it, so you have all at that same baseline. So why is it important as a developer? Well, first off, we don't just problem solve, we don't just write code, we problem solve. When you think about it today, it's not, we just want to like worry about how to write and insert syntax here, or think about just like overall general code base, right? We want to really try to solve a problem that we're given to make whatever business or app or customer happier. Going into that, it also enables us to come up with improvements and potentially new ideas. So as developers, we're reading code all the time, right? Whether it's like through pull requests or looking at open source code or whatever have you, or even now when we're developing with AI, code is being written in front of us, so we have to read through it. The ability to critically think through what's been given to us enables us to think about how we actually can further develop that code base, or actually, again, make improvements, or if we're reading a pull review or a pull request from a fellow developer, help give them coaching tips and make them overall better. Finally, there I have guard against the negatives of AI and utilize their max potential. Ability to critically think involves us, when we're using AI today, we're easily falling into that lazy mentality, right? We insert a prompt, fix this, do that, and we're just sitting back, we're just non-active participants. Being able to critically think and actually being involved in that actually guards against those like negatives that potentially hit that. I was actually reading a blog from a fellow developer called Tom Wojcik, and his blog post was called What AI Coding Costs You. And he made a very pertinent point that says, if you don't use it, you lose it. And if we're just writing in prompts and letting the AI do all logical thinking, we're losing that ability to critically think, which negates the further 2 points I just talked about above. And being like more of an active participant and being involved with all that not only helps you further develop your skills and maybe help you with an additional app, but you actually can utilize the tool that much further, right? We've all heard about like context, and that's key to making the AI output that better, much better. And in doing so and being an active participant and thinking through how to use AI more efficiently, can do just that. Plus, we all know it's getting more expensive with tokens, and so being able to not just waste your tokens allows you to further utilize that as well. So now we've kind of talked through that. Let's talk about, how to use critical thinking when using AI tools. So as I was kind of suggesting in my previous slide, prompting, right? Let's take our time to write well thought out prompts. Don't just insert, I want this fixed, or give me a button here, right? Like, take time to add context to what exactly you're looking to do. Use the, I know there's the @ symbol to mention files, spell out clearly what you want a feature or code base to look like. Don't just let the AI think it could read your mind essentially, right? You want to be there the entire time, spelling out exactly what you want. And that's actually kind of leads to my next point about using plan and debug modes. So for plan mode, we all learned that essentially using plan mode allows us to put up guardrails instead of just, again, putting in a prompt of whatever you want the AI to, whatever feature, XYZ. It allows instead for you to be, again, an active participant and ensure that it's not going to go off and touch a piece of code that you're now familiar with. It will prevent some type of AI stop you might get back. And again, with that critical thinking lens, you should be reading through that plan and making little improvements. You should be questioning back, where did you come up with that plan? Where did that idea come from? And essentially, you're just, again, building that muscle that I've talked about. The other one there is debug mode. And with debug mode, it's actually one of my personal favorites. I've used it a lot in Cursor. I believe it's in Claude Code. I haven't seen it too much or play with it too much there. But essentially, in that mode, you allow the AI model to become your debugging partner. And instead of just letting it run wild, putting a prompt, it will help you figure out maybe a potential issue that you come across. I like to think back to the whole rubber duck technique, if you're all familiar with that. But a quick summary of that is we used to have rubber ducks on our desk that you would explain the problem thoroughly of what you're encountering with your code. And then through that question, through that explanation, you're able to come up with a solution, right? Through talking it out. And it's almost like the modern day version of that. It's it kind of just talks back to you. And with those out of the way, I actually have a live demo of kind of going through just that. So I have this app. We'll do that. And still looking good. Okay. So what I have on the screen here is just a portfolio balancer app. I wanted to come up with a small mini app that allows me to figure out my investments and help allocate them more efficiently. Today I was using an Excel spreadsheet. I'd put in numbers and I'd have my different holdings and securities or stocks or whatever have you. And I'd go through all these formulas and it was crazy. And I was like, you know what, I'm a builder. Let's build something, right? Let's make a little cool web app that I could have there. And so essentially just that. You could insert whatever holdings there. I'll actually showcase that here. So for example, NVIDIA, let's say you have 100% of that in your portfolio, 5 shares, things like that. So it just allows you to keep the code of that. Then the cool part that I wanted was this balance calculator down here that, if I come across, $250 or $1,000 or $1 million, how can it best allocate across my holdings? And to make sure I could still keep my target allocation for each stock or holding I have. So let's try that. Let's say I have $250 and I hit calculate. And then, oh no, we have a bug. I know it's kind of hard to see with the screen, but that is there. And I know we've all been here where we're coding away, we're feeling good, we try to mess with our app, and then that hits us, right? What do we do next? Well, we go to our editor of choice. I'll zoom in a little bit more. And we write something like that, right? I'm getting the following error, please fix it. You take a screenshot, throw it in there, and we hit the enter button and we're off to the races. That's the wrong way, as I've written up there. Instead, what we should do is like the right way, which I won't read it all out there for all of us, but you add as much context as possible. You're describing, I want to hit calculate, X, Y, Z is happening, using that at symbol, like I was mentioning before, to specify what file things are happening in, and just give as much context as possible to allow the model to help debug. So we'll use this prompt, and we'll just hit enter there. So while that's going at it, I'll explain a bit more. So while, it's doing its thing that we're all fondly aware of, what I like also about debug mode is it's essentially doing what we've all done in the past, right? Where if we come across a bug or an error, what do? We add like a console log, or we put some print statements somewhere to kind of figure out exactly what's going on. And it's doing just that. It's kind of like figuring out what we would normally do in terms of, oh, okay, where's all going at? And it's coming up with different hypotheses on potentially where the problem could be at. And what I was kind of talking about before with like the rubber duck technique and adding different context to the prompt, you can also add your own hypothesis too. You're thinking, oh, I think maybe it might be this reason on why something is not working. So we'll let it go through. So it looks like it's doing that. And then there we go. We have some reproduction steps. So as I was mentioning, right, it's like doing what we've done. And then so it's just saying, right, let's refresh the app and try again what we were trying to do, and then hit calculate. So we'll do that. We'll refresh. We'll hit this. Security. And then, whoops, do 5. And then we'll do 250 again. And that's to be expected. It didn't fix anything. It just wanted us to reproduce the steps. And we'll hit proceed. Okay. And then I can kind of put that here. So see, there's like a debug log. This is essentially where it's like capturing what we did essentially there. But also, like I was mentioning, I like this mode just because then it's putting like that mindset or that focus on we're trying to solve a solution or an issue versus just going off and trying to do its own thing. Okay, let's see here. So let me zoom out a little bit because I think it's still okay. So I get that was awesome. It went fast while I was talking. But so essentially, it figured out that the root cause was a snake case with the Python backend, with the front end expecting camel case. Just to, that could happen, right, when you're much you work with different technologies. And let's see here. I believe front end. Okay. And then I believe it added the fix to ensure that, yep, so I implemented the fix by essentially transforming the response. Okay, good. So let's go back. We will hit refresh. NVIDIA 100, 5, and then we'll do 250 again. And then there you go. So then now that's what to be expected. You just want like a card to tell you exactly how much you should invest. So as you can kind of see there, yes, you could have wrote like please fix, and I'm sure with the miles a day, it could have fixed it. It could have done its thing. But in doing the version that we just went over today, you're able to be more involved with the app. You're able to understand, okay, maybe in the future, when you're updating like your Claude MD files, your agent files, you can specify that, right? You can say like, oh, the backend's going to use snake case, make sure it is transformed to camel case in the future. Therefore, ensuring you don't make that same mistake next time. So just things like that. That's what critical thinking does when we're working with these AI tools, not just letting it just being a passenger, if you will. So we can keep going. Let's see. Okay. So at this point, we've talked through various things. We've talked to the various points. We did the demo. I'm sure at this point you're also thinking, okay, great, you went all through all this is fun, but then how do we further develop those skills? Maybe you have your own techniques on how to do it, but do I have techniques to help you out? And I do. I have some techniques how to grow them further, and then also professionally and when not working. And I promise the non-working ones will be fun, so you don't feel like it's a chore. So first off, how to grow critical thinking while working. Ask why, what, and how. Don't just take things at face value. Especially when you're working and you're getting those outputs, understand what the output's bringing to you. Especially if it's either the AI model or your fellow developers' code. Take the time to really go, okay, what's this? How is it being computed? How is it being displayed to the screen? It's okay to take your time. Even though we're really fast and are always quick to get to the next thing, it's very important that we still use our brains to make sure we understand what's going on. And that will help us further with that critical thinking. We'll question, we'll really try to understand what's happening. And that kind of nicely goes into the next point. So validate information, do your own research. And I think we're all very much exposed to this today, where we do a quick Google search, or we go to ChatGPT or whatever have you, and we get some AI response, right? And we kind of just take it as truth of law. Don't, unless you're aware of the information and it's just more of a remembrance, like why is the sky blue? It's oh, that's right, there's particles or something like that. Make sure you go through and go to different links and really understand where that's coming from and why it's happening. Again, you're questioning it, you're building your brain, you're really developing those opinions. Of course, read the docs and blogs, of course, too. Don't just always take and consume from AI models. Make sure to do your own reading. For AI tooling specific, when you can, again, default to plan and ask mode. Those are the times that you're really being, again, like I keep saying, active participant, but you're really involved and you're in the driver's seat. I think that's one of the biggest things that's always been talked about when working with these models, but just further reiterate that in the sense that you should not be just putting it into agent mode, do this feature. It should be you controlling exactly what you want for the end game to be. And you, at that point, once you've in the plan mode or you've asked questions and really understanding what it should happen at the very end, that's when you kind of let it loose and then you let it go off, because we all know it'll be quick, just like we saw with my demo, and it'll get the job done. But at that point, you're fully aware of how it should look like at the end, not just going along for the ride. So, while not working, so professional ones up there, I have LeetCode, Structy, Code Wars, HackerRank, great front end. These are kind of basically the vegetables, quote unquote, if you will, for developers, where maybe something we always like doing, but they're actually very vital for us to stay healthy and keep our mind sharp. We want to do those to kind of keep thinking logically and keep thinking of different ideas, how we can question or provide opinions. And then some fun ones. So I have here puzzle games, like Wordle, Sudoku, Blueprints, and then maybe some mystery movies. Maybe play detective while you're watching them again, instead of just being passenger. You're trying to figure out what's going to happen before the very end. And I came up with this list just through my own personal self journey on how can you kind of hack your way to thinking a bit more critically, instead of just always working your brain muscles too much. I'm sure you all probably have your own versions of games or things that maybe you're thinking a math puzzle or a card game, and I definitely ask you all to kind of lean more into that when you can. Just helps further that brain for you, and so that way when you come back to you're developing and you're making your cool apps, you're well more prepared for that. And then in the classic tech fashion, I have one more tip, And that's to continue to build cool stuff, but with curiosity. Go work on your passion projects, build, break, build again, stay naturally curious. Again, always ask the why, what, and how. Especially when you're working on your own projects, that's the time to really like dive in where, maybe you don't have that deadline or the 1,000,001 tickets you have to get done or whatever have you. It's the time to really just go, okay, why is this happening? Why did that break? Really take the time to learn something and again, like build those opinions. Because at the end of the day, that's really what we're all about. We have our own different opinions and ways of thinking, and we're all just like coming together to build amazing things. And with that, I was leading us to any questions, but that's just what I want to leave you all with today, which is, continue to build, continue to ask questions, and I hope through the talk you all have come away with, all right, I'm gonna use more critical thinking in my workflow in the future. So that's it. Yeah. Any questions? Sure. Yes.
I'd be curious just to know, for your industry experience, what are some of the consequences you've seen of people not using critical thinking with AI? Anything that you've experienced firsthand?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. So absolutely, I have had teammates that were not like software engineering or developer first. There are a couple that were more like UI, UX focused, but they had the tool. And they wanted to, of course, help and develop different features and everything. And they had, of course, there was a lens of critical thinking in their own work to allow them to come up with different designs and different aspects of how it. But I guess from the lens of I was talking about today in terms of for a software engineering aspect of it, it wasn't the type of thing that we needed. And unfortunately, when they were using the tool, it was pushing lots of unnecessary and unperformant code, and it was messing up the code base, and there was a lot of problems back and forth. And it was not out of any spite or trying to sabotage anything. They really want to get more into it. But it was just through that lens of, they had the ability to critically think, but it was kind of more of a software engineering side. And in not doing so, that's where it kind of started to shift the code base and things started messing up. So that was from someone that actually intentionally wanted to help out with the app. And so I can only imagine too further with someone that, was just hey, make this bug go away or what have you, and start messing things up. So thankfully I've not run into any of that, but that's probably been the closest I've come across so far. Yeah, good question. Yeah, Justin.
How are you managing the expectations with maybe not so technical people wanting to get involved and step into this domain and contribute to the code base?
Yeah. That's also a good one. That's also a good question. The main strategy that I've been doing with those type of teammates is just like the person I talked about before that was wanting to help out and make and move things along. I try to give them more tickets that are a little bit more low-hanging fruit. So if it's something that is a bit of a a button, right? If there's a button on the screen that we want to help produce and maybe have a dialog box pop up, I tried to give them tickets like that, and then in doing so, I tell them, work through prompts, but do exactly what we just talked about today. Try add context. Try be an active participant. Don't just say I want this button on the screen. Really be involved in the whole process, and in doing so, that allows them to kind of understand exactly where and how it should be built. And then that allows them also to further develop those engineering skills too. And that has worked. So with that same person, although that happened where they pushed code that didn't necessarily work and it was kind of awkward, the next ticket was, hey, let's work on this smaller feature. And him doing that he came away with way more valuable skills, and he's like, oh, okay, now I understand a bit more how the whole like Webflow works. Click a button, request, response idea, and he's just a little bit more like involved with it, and he came across a little bit more like experience. And so that's what I've tried to do, like manage it where yes, you want to be eager and help out, but let's give you some more low-hanging fruit, and then allow you to learn along the way. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
I'm seeing like a gap between like the people who do implement the critical thinking in their prompts and their AI and all this, and they might have these great prompts that do the world because they have critically thought it through.
Yeah.
But then there's still the gap between the products at the end that you may not fully understand what actually happened, even though you fully understood what you wanted to happen. So how are you like navigating that? I guess like I'm inheriting code that people are like, yeah, but I thought about this, and I'm like, great, it doesn't work. So how do
Yeah.
you get from A to B without using the AI? Can you defend yourself?
Yeah.
Kind of deal,
Yeah. So just to confirm, so that like you're saying the people that like write the well thought out like prompts and strategies, and that at the end of the day the app still isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing. Yeah. No, that's a good one. I'll come from I guess a more personal, and then I'll maybe kind of do a bit more like general. For my own personal experience and with my teams, I push for when you're building out like different features. So I think first things first is you always want to take it step by step. You never just want to go, let's build that entire dashboard, everything out there, maybe break it up by components, like, oh, let's just talk about the buy card, and let's talk about the holdings part first. So definitely first start with that. Then from there, I think it's always constant human user check, if you will, because I know exactly what you're talking about. I've also worked with people like that where they're just like, oh yeah, I pushed the code and it works, and then I'm testing it and it doesn't, and it's like, all right, okay, what happened? And when you're working on it yourself, something that I personally do is even after the model does its magic and does everything, you have the app, I always personally check and go, is this button working? Are we going to the right page? And if it doesn't, then that means there's definitely something critically wrong between the prompts that was like set up to what the end game had been. And in doing that, it becomes like a cycle. Then you go back to the prompt, and then because I know, right, like you refer to like those like Claude MD files or agent model files. And then you go back through there, and then that's when you kind of like a conversation with the model to restructure, yes, you put the button, but now the button's going to the home page instead of the buy page. And that's where you kind of at that point start restructuring whatever the person or whatever team's construct of the agent file was, to make it more like resilient and better for the future. So I guess in saying all that, it goes to, yes, try it out. I think it's a lot of trial and error. I think the most important thing is always to click and try, have like whatever teammates you're working on or working with, make sure that things are working there. And if it doesn't, that's when it's time to go back and reiterate and make sure you get it more structured. So that's something that I've been trying to also push along to other people as well, is like, yes, let it do its work, but check it, make sure it works. If not, you need to go back and reiterate. So, yeah. Yep.
So you mentioned a lot of like client-side engineering. Is there any other types of way we should think about this when working on server side or with databases?
Yep. That's a good question. Yes, there is like I guess an inherent different way of thinking in terms of you want the code to be more like performant. You don't want to do like N+1 queries, or things like that. And I would say the general tips and tricks that we talked about today can go both sides of the fence. I still think no matter what, you should have that critical thinking lens. And maybe if you're a little bit unfamiliar with the server side or the database side level, and you're not understanding too much what's going on, I think it's the time to really question what's happening. And when you're coming up with those plans, really question and go like, okay, where'd that part of the plan come from? Really lean into figuring out what and how it should end up. I think that more or less is really kind of like the difference. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it becomes to your comfortability. If you're feeling more comfortable with one side or the other, that's when you can kind of draw back a bit more if you want to question anything. But other than that, I think really it's more of a general idea on both sides. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
One is, how do you overcome the tendency of those models to bring, if you're working on the front end, to bring back multiple libraries that you might not want to use and not tell you about it? So you'd say, hey, put a button over here, and he brought 3 different libraries from NPM to help you out with that. So how do you manage that?
It's a good one. With that, it's a bit of, I'll admit, it's a bit of I think trial and error. But I think kind of back to the question we talked about before about after you kind of reiterate, if you have your your plan and you want, like you say, implement a button, whatever have you, and you're finding that it's installing libraries you were not wanting, that's when you go back and say, okay, uninstall the library you just did, whatever have you, and then you would say add to your memory or add to the Claude file, do not use XYZ libraries. I think that's been the best way. Otherwise, other than if you knew ahead of time which libraries you did not want to work with, that would be the time to add, do not use, whatever have you, files or libraries you don't want. That's been the best way that I've worked with, and it's been working out pretty well. You say you have another question?
So as far as backend code, so everybody knows about the outage that AWS had, Amazon had. Microsoft is now being called Microsoft. There's huge code bases that are going in that are creating a lot of technical debt. And there are 2 schools of thought. One is that technical debt is going to fall on top of senior engineers. And the other one is technical debt doesn't really matter anymore because you can just regenerate the entire thing again until it's okay. So which side of the fence do you fall, if any?
So just make sure I had it. It's the one, so one side is...
One side is humans are going to have to deal with that massive code base that was generated by AI that looks okay, but fails in production because there is a difference between work on my computer and work when there's 10,000 users trying to use it, right?
Absolutely.
The other side of the fence is technical debt doesn't really matter because we can just regenerate the entire code again until it works.
Wow, that's I haven't heard the other side. That's an interesting point because it's just throw it in the model, let it clean up. That's interesting. I'm definitely falling more, I guess, if I had to pick. I'm definitely more, I think, in the former camp where it's the concern about dealing with technical debt that humans have to unravel. But I want to add a little spin on it, which is I think that's where we should do everything in our power to make sure we don't have that much technical debt. So at my current role, there is plenty of that where a previous non-technical person essentially vibe coded an entire back end, and it's just all over the place. And there's we're finding out things are breaking when you start pulling the string and things like that. And is it working? Yes. That's not, but we don't understand it, which that I think is a vital point. I think as we work with this, as we're being in this field, I know that we develop different like layers of like understanding. I know we're trying to move maybe just a little bit of this paradigm where like we need to understand less and less under the hood. But I think what truly makes this field and this type of work like amazing is having that technical knowledge and being able to take like a problem or like a business idea and like make it something with code. And so coming back to your point, like I think we should manage that technical debt as much as possible and not let all the free reign go to just the model fixing it. Now, of course, we could probably argue like there's efficiencies with that and speed, but it gets to the point where then it's like, are we just gonna be glorified button pushers? And then I don't think anybody wants that. I think there's still like inherent magic in this field in terms of like going, okay, I understand how the logic looks, or I understand how the logic works by looking at like a code base. So yeah, I guess I would say definitely the former side, but making sure you don't end up with technical debt and being involved in understanding and to be involved in fixing it so it's more understandable. Hope that answers your question. Okay, cool. Yes.
I wanted to kind of circle back to his question.
Yeah.
I've been encountering it on the Python side in terms of libraries and things like that being inserted.
Yeah.
And I've found that if you kind of try to force the model to defend itself before it injects, it's less likely to inject it. So if you force it and say, hey, like if you're going to do this, you have to explain yourself as to why I even need it, because I didn't need it before, so why do I need it now?
Yeah.
That prevents a lot of those libraries from coming in, I found.
Oh, nice, nice.
I don't know if that works on the front end. I've been
Yeah.
for a while.
Hey, yeah, it's cool.
I wanted to circle back to the second part. Is
Yeah.
I think that like I see both sides. I do see it going more to like software engineers like us as humans, because I'm already putting it and it's trash.
Yeah.
Dumpster fires all over. But to the second part too, if you just regenerate and regenerate and regenerate, at what point do you just have garbage in, garbage out, no matter what? And you're
Exactly.
dealing with a model that's going to feed you trash no matter what.
Exactly.
Like, you're not even going to mess with AI at all, and we're all going to be back to
Yep.
Windows 95 software engineers where we read books again, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like a cyclical kind of little version of our hell right now. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. 100% agree.
It's not up to us, right?
I think a lot.
There-
None of it is.
If someone over here has like a minimum token that they need to hit
Yeah.
in their work,
Yeah.
because the CEO said everybody needs to waste those tokens.
I mean, it was the
It's
same
not
back in the
always
days
up
of like
to us.
overseas
Yeah.
engineering where I swear that they used to code by the line and get paid by the line.
Yeah.
You know, like you had 60 lines of code to go open one pop-up box.
Yeah.
For what?
Right. Right.
Now it's going to be that code base times 10.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, I'll say like one thing to the second question with the regenerating the code until it works. So at my workplace, we have like a bunch of different teams. And one of the things that like some of the teams have been experimenting with is like spec-driven development, right? So they spin up entire like separate projects. Of course, it's out of the way of like production and everything like that, right? So not user-facing. But these repositories are like, they're built in a different way than like kind of standard repository built for like agents first. And a lot of the actual commits, like the CLs that we write against that are just specs, right? And the agents take care of it, refactor it, run it, right? So I think there's, and I think even in a world where like spec-driven development becomes like the new main thing, I think there's still like a lot for an engineer to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you know, like I spend like a lot of my day like reviewing specs, meetings, stuff like that, right? Coding is like a very minimal part of what I do now, right?
Right.
So I think there's still a lot to do. It's interesting to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think it's, yes, it's like, it is interesting how like, at the end of the day, right, I think it's technically all still software engineering, but I think it's kind of the fun part about it. It's like, I think we've always had like plans, we've always like had specs, like we're always kind of like thinking through, you know, what it should be or what implementation should be before we even should do it, at least as we should have been doing. Like we always should have been like planning all of it out before we like actually touch like one line of code. And yeah, like I agree. It's like it's you know the from the whole like idea of like that kind of more spec driven development. It's definitely just like a different lens of like how we're working. But I don't know. I still kind of think to the point of like we shouldn't just kind of go back to just always letting the AI like always regenerate, keep doing things on its own without like, at least being aware of what the end game should be at. Because we don't ever just want like a black hole or a black box that's just like, oh yeah, it's doing the thing. I can't explain to you how or why, but it's working. Because at that point, whoever you're working with is gonna think like, aren't you supposed to be the subject matter expert? I'm like, what's going on? It's like, yeah. Well, I just click a button and it's works. So I don't know, it just gives us more confidence in our code and confidence in our implementations, and like I was saying, I think it makes us actually interesting stuff to work with. Yeah. So, yeah. Anything else? Okay, cool. I just have like my contact information if you want to connect with me. Just my GitHub and LinkedIn and things like that. But yeah, thank you so much.